Welcome to the Alchemist Inkwell.
This is your spiritual podcast for grounded people.
I'm Emily.
I'm KristaLyn, and we have an amazing guest today. Go ahead and introduce yourself, Raquel.
Hello, everyone. My name is Raquel Cohen.
So you guys, Raquel is a genius when it comes to plants and energy and healing and even interior design. I've actually worked with Raquel in my own space a little bit. It was a super fun thing. So we cannot wait to talk to her about everything that she can do with plants and your space and the sacred magic that not only exists in a book she's already written, but in one that is still coming.
Oh.
And I'm
So
just
yeah.
Sorry.
I'm just will you tell us, well, I would love to hear how you got into what you do now and kind of a little bit of a synopsis of what you do for people or what you do in your own space in regards to like healing and plants and all of that jazz.
Okay, great. There's like two questions in there and I will do my best to stay brief. My story of coming to work with plants is actually one of mental health and need. My background is in environmental education. I used to work as a presenter, an animal trainer at places like New England Aquarium, Sea Life Park, Hawaii, the San Diego Zoo, and Monterey Bay Aquarium. And my role, I've always had this intense connection with nature and animals and the natural world. And I was raised in a really religious environment. And I'm not religious, it just didn't connect with me, but I felt the divine and I felt spirit in nature. And so from a young age, I felt this deep connection. And then when I started studying ecology, it just opened up my heart, my mind, and that became kind of my religion. And I just knew that my role here on Earth was to act as a bridge, connecting humans back with nature and back with, I mean, at the time, I thought it was more like connecting people with the wonder of nature, the interconnectivity. Now I know it's more about connecting people back with their own spirit, using nature as the portal. But at that time, I really saw it as me as a guide to introduce people to animals and habitats and ecosystem functions so that people remember we are a part of this glorious planet, not a part from it. So that's kind of where I started. When I became pregnant, I started really wanting to bring plants into my house. And I've always loved plants and been very soothed by them, but I was never a plant person. Like every time I tried to bring plants in, I would inevitably just kill them. I would forget about them or overwater them. And so they just weren't my thing for a while. They were kind of like the fun background to the animals I love to work with. But then I became pregnant and things got a little quieter inside of me and the plants got a lot louder. And so I started bringing some plants in as like house plants with my first child. And then after my second daughter was born, I got really, really bad anxiety. And what was interesting about that is I've had issues with anxiety and depression and what I term ecophobia, which is kind of depression and anxiety spurred on by environmental destruction. I had suffered from that when I was doing my work, when I was getting my master's, I was on anti-anxiety meds. I had to take sleep aids because I was having trouble sleeping. And then after the birth of my second daughter, it just really exploded for me again. And I was having horrible anxiety, horrible insomnia. And when you're taking care of like a 6-month-old and a 2.5-year-old and getting 3 hours of sleep every night, it's just like a recipe for like madness. And I was just struggling, you know, I honestly was at a place where I felt like I'm pointless. Like I'm a waste of breath. That's what I felt like, because I knew my life was blessed, but I couldn't tap into it. I was so enmeshed with fear and anxiety. And so I found a great therapist who happened to be an energy worker on the side. And she saw that I was stuck and she's like, you know, obviously talk therapy. And at that time, you know, some anti-anxiety meds too. But what she said for me was I really needed to unlock some of my creativity and let things flow through me again. So I read this book called The Artist's Way, which you might be, I see you're familiar with that.
I love The Artist's Way.
Yes, by Julia Cameron. Very powerful book, very, very powerful. I started doing morning pages and then I got inspired to start making art while my kids were napping in the afternoon, just using clippings from succulents from my garden, finding old vases and glass bowls around the house and just finding stuff and making like little terrariums. And when I started making this art, my brain just shut off. it just went quiet, like inside my head, when before it was monkey mind spiraling, this, I got to do this, I got to do that. Why did I say this? Who did that? This is terrible. Blah, like all of that. It just went, like I was present, I was mindful, I was in the moment, and I wasn't anxious, I wasn't sad. I was just there with the plants, with the soil, with the crystals and the wood and whatever I was working with. And that's really what started opening me up to kind of a spiritual awakening, an intuitive awakening, an energy awakening. And I just kept following the plant's guidance for a long time. It was really through creativity, making art, teaching other people to make art, kind of getting into that flow state and mindful state. I started planting into crystals and then really noticed the energy around the crystals. So that kind of got me to study becoming an energy worker and a crystal healer. And then as I continued to work with the plants and do my own energy work and crystal work, I started unlocking some of my intuitive gifts. And so when I was working on people, I'd start hearing things and seeing things. And then I was starting to work more with the plants, and I would hear them talk to me in meditation, or I would be planting with them and I would feel their energy moving through my body. And so they just kept spurring me on to learn more. And so in the last year and a half, I took a bunch of courses about intuition, and I unlocked my gifts as an intuitive and as a medium. And I just keep kind of following their guidance. And that's kind of where I'm at now.
That is a beautiful journey. Wow. And so relatable in several different points of it. I think that the path that you've walked to this point, you really meet a lot of people on that journey, where I think a lot of listeners are probably at any point in that path feeling that way. And, you know, from the very basic, I can't keep a plant alive to becoming someone who thrives with plants and speaks with them and communes with them. And not only that, but can use them as this intuitive partner. I just think that's so cool. I love following you on Instagram when you share the crystals that you put the succulents on. And it's just so amazing to see those and see the energy coming off of them, sort of amplified, the plant energy amplifying the crystal energy, and the nature that just really combines in that. It's so cool.
Yes, thank you.
I love how your journey also highlights the shift in identity that happens after you have kids. Because that is humongous, and it's not talked about enough because we don't have enough tools to like navigate that shift. And that feeling of like, well, now all I am is this now, can be so overwhelming, especially if you are not super fully awake, or if you're struggling with like any sort of understanding of the spiritual world around you. And leaning into that can be really healing, but it does come with, hey, get back to doing something you personally enjoy to lead that path. And I love that yours was plants, and that led to more and more and more. But I just want to encourage, as I have 3 kids, so to me, I'm like, I get this. This is fantastic. But I want to encourage anyone, like, go back to something after you have kids. Go back to something that makes you feel like you again, even if it's just during their nap time, even if it's in the smallest way. Or it can be in a massive way. After I had my kids, I ended up being a horseback trail guide for like 3.5 years because horses were the thing that I loved the most. So I'm like, I'm going to go do this, and healing in nature in the same space. But it's so important. And I love how you highlighted that.
Thank you. And I think what's really fascinating about it too is that it was that transition into motherhood that kind of put me in a place to be ready for the plant's medicine. That kind of stillness, that kind of transition from maiden to mother. It's a big transition. It's a big internal shift. And then there was a stillness and a desire to go inward that was happening for me in that moment. That is what I believe allowed me to start hearing and feeling the plant's invitation.
Yeah. So random kind of fun question then, since you do talk to plants, and I know a lot of our listeners are probably really intrigued by that concept. What are some of the things that the plants tell you? What are some of the information that you gather from these beautiful leafy beings that are all around you?
So the first one that comes off every single plant is just pure unconditional love. And that's why I think so many people, and especially so many millennials, are just like, give me all the plants, because like the world needs more love. There is just no doubt about that. And when you look at plants, I mean, they are the foundation of life on Earth. They provide all of the oxygen that we breathe and the basis of all the food that we eat, not to mention the structures that we use as well. So we wouldn't even exist without plants on this planet. They're kind of a necessary step in development for life. So pure unconditional love is the very first thing that every single plant is providing. And then the other one is that they just want you to open up and recognize in your beingness, you are worthy to receive just as you are right in here, right now, just open to receive the prana, the love that's coming from Earth and from the heavens, from the sun, from the cosmos, just open to receive. You don't have to, claim this or claim that, or get through that challenge, or, get up level this way or send to here. You just need to open right where you are and take in that energy. And then another one that they are very adamant with me is to remove perfection from my vocabulary. I remember one night I was in deep meditation and I just heard my plants, the ones around me right now, so clearly saying to me, look at us. We do not strive for perfection. Neither should you. Look at the growth. Just focus on the growth. Because if you look at my plants around my house, like I have a lot of plants that have some yellowing on the leaves or browning tips here or there. And I don't stress about it because I focus on my plants growing, continuing to grow, putting out new leaves, looking happy. And then I go outside and I look at the plants all around and they have little holes from bugs. They have yellowing leaves. They brown and drop. And that's just normal part of growth and development. And I think sometimes when we're the plant tenders, when we get too obsessed with the imperfections, we're actually missing out on the message of love and acceptance that the plants are really wanting to share with us.
It kind of reminds me of, I could be incorrect about the process here, but of bonsai work in the bonsai tradition, where you prune the plant to encourage its growth in the direction that it's already sort of set for itself. So you encourage it in the growth that it has pursued, rather than, let's say, like a topiary, where you confine it into a certain shape. So is that true? Is that?
I mean, yes and no. I haven't done a ton of bonsai, but I do know that some people who really do bonsai very much do shape it. They use like wire around it and shape it into. So there's a combination of topiaryism. I don't think that's a word. I might have made that. But like the topiary art and the bonsai art do kind of merge. But what I think I love about bonsai is kind of, and I think you see it a little bit in that wabi sabi kind of approach too, which is like try to match the look and feel of nature. So it's not about like perfect symmetry or, like you want to allow it to feel organic. And with bonsai in particular, I think it becomes a really meditative state for those who I've talked to who really go into bonsai, because they start it's a communication with the plant, and they can start feeling with the plant, where do you want us to clip? Where do you want to grow from? Right. And so it really becomes a conversation that they're having. I believe a really energetic conversation that they're having with the plant.
It sounds incredible.
And now I want to do more bonsai.
Yeah, right. Me too.
Our house doesn't grow plants. Like my house is so shaded. It's such a, like, this is Harry Potted, the plant that lived. And
I love it so much.
Krista named him.
Very
we
proud.
got evacuated for a fire earlier this year, and he's too big to take. And I was like, please survive. And he was fine. He lived like a champ. But I love that energy of like giving that comes in the space too, of like, yes, you get stuff from having the plants and that unconditional love, but it's also about giving and giving them the love they deserve. And that is a lesson I think everybody needs on some level and with like a greater depth. Obviously for you, plants have been very healing. Do you recommend certain types of plants or certain practices to do with plants for other people to help them in their like healing and growing journey?
Yeah, I think it's more about the practices and the specific types. And of course I could talk about different types and some of the energies I feel from them, but I think really it's about aligning with a type of plant that A, matches your space, and B, matches your lifestyle, because then you're going to both thrive together. But when it comes to the healing part of plants, it's really about the energy you bring to them and the energy you receive from them. So it is about the practices. So for example, for me in the morning, I always go and spend time with my plants before I get on my screen, right? Like that's something very simple that I can do. I have plants all around my meditation space. And so when I go and sit and kind of do my morning stretches and open up my chakras, I'm using the plants all around me as kind of the visual stimulus to raise my vibration. That's one. Two is actually through like ingesting plants. So things like teas, infusions, tinctures, your diet, right? Like I'm not a full vegan, but I tend to eat more plant-based in particular. And I've really gotten into a beautiful relationship, especially with some herbs and plants in my garden, for things like tinctures and teas and infusions, as a way to really connect with plants in an internal way too. And when you're using some of the ones from your garden, it's really beautiful because when you tap in with them, they kind of share with you that they're in there with you, right? Like the ones that you're growing, they're also inside of you and you kind of are inside of them. And it's this really beautiful exchange. And then I think a big one, which you kind of just touched upon, Emily, which is this kind of give and take. I call it sacred reciprocity. And I think it's really how we're meant to go about our life, recognizing with every breath, we are both giving and receiving, right? With every breath that we take, with every inhale, we're receiving it from the plants. With every exhale, we're giving it to the plants. And they are doing the same with us. So there's just such a beautiful symbiosis in there. So I think even just taking time during the day to go and be with the plant and breathe consciously, intentionally, with depth, really helps you ground into the present moment. One of the things I tell people when first starting to want to open up to plants is just start with your awareness. Don't even go to the nursery and buy all the plants and bring them in. Like, look outside your window. What tree is calling to you, is calling your attention? When you take your commute, if you are commuting to work these days, or even when you're just commuting to the grocery store, or any of your normal walks or drives, like notice what are the plants that are calling to you? What are the ones that your eyes are drawn to? Typically, those are the ones that you might not even be realizing it, but they're sending you messages of love, of connection. And that's why you look to them when you go about your day. So it's just opening up your awareness to receive what's already being sent your way.
And that's such a great point, because we are in a time where a lot of people are making the transition back to at least a hybrid office schedule.
Yeah.
And so even bringing plants into that space, which can usually feel so impersonal, possibly sterile, having that little energy buddy right there with you, and knowing like what kind of plants would call out to you for that situation. It's very much, it reminds me of the way that you might select crystals, where it's what do I need in this situation? And usually the crystal or the plant or the resource finds you in some kind of inspiration. It's been around waiting for you to recognize it.
Yeah. I actually have a good example of that. I was going to my local nursery to get some like herbs and produce plants for my raised bed. And there was this one herb that I saw there called Borage. And I was like, never heard of this one, but I really feel called to it. Like I'm going to take it. I don't know. And so I brought it home and then I researched it, and it's amazing for people who tend to overthink, overprocess, put a ton of pressure on themselves. And I was like, oh my gosh, this is so a plant that I need. And so I put it in my raised bed, and it's a self-seeding plant. So it has really taken over like a whole part of my garden now, and has this beautiful little blue flowers that the bees love. And it has this little thing in the middle that looks like a little bird's beak. So for me, it reminds me very much of a great throat activation plant as well.
With the blue.
Yeah. And just, it looks like a little beak in the center too. And I just use it all the time. I add it to smoothies. I have a tincture for it. I use it in teas, and it's just one of my favorite plants. And when I connected with her energy and her spirit for the book I'm writing, she said to me that we're so intertwined, that like her cells are in me and my cells are in her. And it was just such a beautiful relationship that she felt with me and that I feel with her. And so anyway, it just reminded me of that you can really have these very personal relationships with the plants when you just kind of open up and follow your curiosity.
Yeah, and that's so unique with plants, the fact that your cells truly can intertwine, because you can use them with teas. You can use them in that, like you mentioned before, that symbiosis. It really is an integrative kind of process and activity. And I'm fascinated. You communed with plants as research for your book. So tell us more about your book. I know you have a book already.
Yes.
Do you want to tell us a little bit about that one and then how you've transitioned into this new one?
Yes. In fact, I have it right. I have the old one.
Yeah. Yeah, let's see that. The cover is really cool. It's a great coffee table book. I personally own it because it's amazing.
So my first book is called Infinite Succulents, and this is a succulent craft book. It's all miniature, so it's all like little mini crafts you can make with succulents, and it teaches you about clipping the succulents and using them to make actual art, and then taking the art apart and replanting it, which is kind of how I got the title for my business in the book, which is this infinite potential succulents have to be used for creative endeavors. So this book really fell into my lap. I was not actively seeking a book at that time. I received a random email saying, hey, I'm an editor at a publishing house and we're looking for a succulent book. And I love your Instagram. This was back in 2018, maybe late 2017. And of course I was like, got to respond to that email, right?
So that's great. I like succulents too.
Yeah. So my first book really fell into my lap. And what was interesting though, is as I was finishing writing that book, like before it even came out, I had this download for an idea for another book, which was really about plants and wellness. And I was really focused on how plants can help us heal on a physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual level. And so I was pitching that book for years. I was working with my original publishing house and they liked it at first, but then they got it to the sales team meeting and, you know, like my editor was all for it and then they bring it to the sales team, right? And so I got rejected. And so then it was like a process of working on rewriting the book proposal. I found a great literary agent that was really helpful and just trying to bring that book to life in some way. And it was really interesting because I got a lot of rejections. It was a very interesting process because the book that I was kind of envisioning was very academic in some ways. It was going to be very like all this proof in the science, but then I also wanted to go into the spirit. It was like massive, right? It could have been 3 different books. So I had one publishing house reach out and we're like, we really like this idea. We feel like it's a really big idea. And we like the idea of focusing mainly on the spiritual side of plants. And I was like, yes, that's where I live, right? Like that is me. So I totally reworked the book proposal. I made this great proposal all about it on a spiritual level. The editor loved it. I felt like this was a go, right? Like this was going to happen. They bring it to the sales team. And the sales team was like, we don't know how to sell this book. So I got rejected again, but this publishing house came back to me with the idea of, well, what if we tweak it and make it more a book about plants magic and using plants in a magical way? And at first I was a little bit like, is that me? Because I think I felt like they were really looking for like a witchcraft book. And while I do identify as a green witch, I'm completely self-taught. I wouldn't have tried to write like a green witch book.
Right.
But then when I was like, well, how do I define magic, right? And I define magic as the conscious, intentional movement of energy in desired ways. And as an energy worker, that's exactly what I do with plants. So when I reframed that, I was like, oh, wait, no, this is totally my book. Universe knows better than me the way to write this book. So we reworked the proposal yet again, and that's how we came with this book I'm currently working on, which is called Everyday Plant Magic, Change Your Life Through the Magical Energies of Nature. And yeah, so this book, the introduction section of the book kind of just introduces you to some magical portals. So things like the sun, the moon cycles, the elements, the directions, creating an altar, things like that. And then I also introduce everyone to the chakra system because that's the way I use magic. And I talk about plants and chakras all the time. And then it goes into 45 different plant profiles, talking about the magic and the messages those plants have for us. There's some rituals interspersed in there as well. And then talking a little bit about just living an everyday plant magic life, what that means in terms of your daily routines, and also what that means in terms of your interaction with the earth. And that's the book.
That's beautiful.
I love that.
I
love that
also
so much.
my astrologer heart is like super giddy right now because you said, oh, you got this email with this opportunity for Infinite Succulent in 2018, which happens to be the year that Uranus moved into Taurus. And we began that sort of revolution towards more natural resources and things, which continues for quite a while still. So of course, the universe called on you right on time, and you were just like raising your hand. I love that so much. And doing it in such unique ways. You know, plant work is not something that's new, but it is something that's reemerging. And we do need it to emerge in ways where people are interested, where people feel called to or related with. And you incorporating it with succulents and art, and then saying, hey, but also, you know, interior design, crystals, and the everyday magical application, the everyday, like the fact that there is magic in every day. Let me show you how that works. And there's just so many boxes that you check with this. And I think it's just so relevant and needed and so aligned. Like if the world could do a little bit more like what you're doing when it comes to relating to nature and incorporating nature, I think we would be doing really well. And I think we're on our way there, but you're certainly carrying a torch with us.
Oh, well, thank you. My projector heart is very, very happy to hear you say.
So you accepted the invitation. I was about to ask if you were a projector.
Yeah, very much so.
Yeah, I remember that.
Question on that too. You touched on how you're using plants with chakra work, and I don't want you to have to like explain the entirety of that, but if you could like explain a little bit of how that works, because that's a really intriguing and different concept. And also just one other thing that you said where you're like, I'm entirely self-taught. Well, that is the point, I think, of a lot of this spaces is we have to follow our own self-taught kind of intuition in space. So I think that is really neat. So I'd love to hear how that kind of came to you and what you do with chakras and plants.
Yeah. Okay. So first off, every single plant is going to touch us up in the heart chakra and activate the heart chakra. I mean, the heart chakra governs the lungs, our breath. So knowing the relationship that plants have with our ability to breathe, we know that every single plant is immediately going to work with us on the heart chakra level. And what's interesting about that too, is when I do energy work with my clients, when I dive into their heart chakra, 8 out of 10 times I'm in like a gorgeous jungle. Just absolutely beautiful, luscious jungle. With some people, I'm in outer space, and with some people, I'm like off planet, different planets, but 8 out of 10 times I'm in a jungle. So then going from there, you kind of have to look at the plant, see what the plant in itself, how it functions in its own ecology, and that can give you some hints as to the plant's ability to help us in our chakra system, and then also just kind of the magic the plant has. So let's take, for example, I'm going to bring one of my plants right here, right now. Okay. We got Sansevieria, snake plant right here. Okay. Sansevieria, for a kind of like a succulent plant, they actually have roots that go down pretty deep and are really, really strong. So Sansevieria is a really, really great plant for rooting and grounding. It activates our root chakra. They also are, I don't know if you can tell just the shape of it. I always tell people it looks like an exclamation point.
Oh, I
right?
love that.
And that is exactly the energy of this plant. It is fire energy. It is total like, let's do this energy, which is going to hit us right in the solar plexus. So this is a great plant to have like in your workspace to keep you motivated, to keep you feeling good about yourself and the work that you're doing. So those are the big ones for this one. It's going to be heart, root, and solar plexus. And that's just kind of knowing this plant and looking at this plant and feeling the energy of this plant and feeling where it activates inside of me. Also with some of the plants, especially working with some of the herbs and some of like the trees, knowing some of their medicinal compounds will also help us know how they help our chakra system. So take, for example, mint. Mint is a really great one. Mint is fantastic for the throat chakra. It's one of the ones that is recommended to use before doing public speaking because it helps open the throat chakra. Also considering the mouth and, you know, breath. It's great for removing toxicity and kind of clearing the space. So really wonderful for throat chakra activation. Mint also is really good for the third eye. It helps activate kind of the ability to get into the spiritual realms and trust what you're receiving. So that's really great for the third eye as well. So a little bit of knowing the plant's ecology, knowing the plant's gifts, and then just working with them and seeing what it feels like inside your body.
I love that. I
Yeah,
love
it
basing it
also,
on the qualities of the plants. And,
yeah.
because you can look at a plant and that part way might tell you something about its associations, but you really get into the personality of the
Mhm.
plants, which I really think is cool. And you make it accessible. Like I can imagine now that, mint has this personality. It goes with this because it does this and it has these effects. It makes it relatable.
Mhm.
Yeah. I love mint in particular because I have a very spiritual connection with mint. When I was starting to be able to hear my guides more clearly, one of the first nights they came through really loud for me, the first thing I heard was drink more mint tea.
Mm.
They told me to drink more mint tea. And then a few months later, mint started naturalizing in my garden. So it like spread out of my bed into like the actual garden. Is now taken over a spot. And I love mint, so that doesn't bother me. I'm like, go for it,
Ah.
babe. You got it. Go. Like I will use you.
Mhm.
So I just have a really beautiful connection with mint in particular. She's one of my power plants.
I love that.
So on that note too, do you have like a go-to tip for making your plants happy? I mean, I know every plant requires something different, but I'd love to know if there's like an energy work tip or even just like a tangible do something to their water, whatever it is that you think is the best way that you can make them thrilled to be in your space.
Yeah. So for me personally, I know a lot of people love to, talk to them and sing to them. And I do that more telepathically, but for me, it's really touch. As an energy worker,
Mm.
I'm very much a hand person. And so I just go around and just kind of touch them in really lovingly ways as I just feel guided to as I'm moving around my day. And just through my hands and just gentle touches, I'm sending them so much love and appreciation. It's basically just me going by and being like, I see you. And then like the avatar way of like, I
Yeah.
see you. You know what I mean? Like
Mhm.
where it's not just like, I see you. It's like, I see you. I open to you. And one of the things I love to share is that the hands are actually part of the heart chakra. When we are in utero, the ancestral cells that become our hands, some of them become, the ancestral cells that become our heart, some of them split off and become our hands. So I really see our hands as doing our heart's work. So knowing that the plants are always sending us energy straight into our heart, and also the largest area of the body to receive energy is the back of the heart. So plants are always trying to open us up in our heart space, always trying to get us to receive more love. So I just take my hands and I have some plants right above me. So I just stroke them, I just touch them. And that's just something simple I do on a daily basis that connects me, that grounds me, that inspires me, and that also keeps me, it's weird because it's like it kind of keeps me present in my physical reality while also opening me to the spiritual world that's always happening around us at the same time. Which honestly, as an intuitive, one of the things that's so important when we are trying to like get out into the astral plane and like get multisensory information, we have to ground ourselves to earth first. So plants for me are such a beautiful way to both ground into our physical reality, the love of earth, this place, this amazing planet that we're on, to ground into that while also allowing myself to open and receive the fact that we live in a multi-dimensionary, multi-sensory existence. So they're just the immediate like guides for me for that. Because I think we all, those of us who are in the spiritual, intuitive world, we know what it feels like to let ourselves go up without grounding. How we can kind of get flighty, and we can kind of, when we come back from that afterwards, we're like, whoa, wait, I actually feel kind of weird. I don't, you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
So the plants remind us to go to those places, but do it from here, from now, from you. Don't escape yourself. Do it from in yourself. Do it from in this planet. Yeah.
And it is really a testament and an example of how it really is all connected. It's not one or the other. The plants can remind you that they are spiritual, energetic, natural, and corporeal all at the same time. And that's a really great example for them to set for us. I find, one of the things people like to talk about is that we are meant to be stewards of nature. And I totally agree with that. But I think nature does a really great job right now of being stewards of us. And, as you say, they speak to us, they have wisdom for us. I remember one time I was in Scotland and we were going to walk up a hill and we were deciding whether to drive or walk. And I looked out the window and I truly said to my parents, I need to walk because the trees have something to tell me. And I walked the path and I was able to, sort of commune with the trees. I'm a Taurus, so trees are very connected for me. But it's just so interesting how they will take care of you and it can be reciprocal.
Trees are energy workers, straight up. Even when you just look out your window, and I'm looking and look at a tree, it's working on your aura. Any tree that you're just all of a sudden you find yourself, oh, I'm just staring at this tree. That tree is working on your aura in that moment. And that's why you find yourself just stopped and staring at it. They are energy workers. They are gurus. I mean, I know we're kind of moving away from that term, but like trees are legit ancient and wise elders for us. And they have so much to impart, so much wisdom, so much connection, so much love, so much beingness. I think as humans, we have a really hard time in the being. And that's actually what we're being asked to sink into more, is our beingness. And the trees are just right there for us to help us with that.
So it's so interesting to me. It always boggles my mind because I know even in myself personally, and I live very much in nature, very, very much in nature. But it's how we have forgotten that we're part of it as like a collective human species. It's just mind blowing to think that we would be separate or better when really like nature is like our babysitter. Just be like, oh, well, maybe you should not do that right now. Like it's very, very conscious. And that level of separation that has like is an entire illusion, but also one that has been so collectively established just boggles my mind every time I tune into it. Like, wow, like how much did we have to go through to really believe that we were that separate? Like, it's crazy.
Well, it mirrors completely the separation we have from the divine and from our own soul and our own spirit. I mean, it's the same. It's exactly the same, which is why I really believe my role here is to connect people back in with soul remembrance, using nature as the gateway, as the portal, as the bridge, because that's what nature is. But we also have to remember human society for a while there, we were living very much in balance with nature, but also recognizing in those moments, like nature could kill us in a moment. And nature still could kill us in a moment. Like, I think it's really important, especially in the sustainability world. I hear so often like, humans are destroying the planet. No, we're not. We're destroying the planet being a nice place for us to live as humans. But the planet Earth, she is going to be okay. Like, she has wiped out species way bigger than us before. And when we look at the timeline of life on Earth, humans have been here for like this much of it, like if the timeline goes this far, humans have been here. And just like basically a pinky, the nail of your pinky is like how much time humans have actually been here on Earth. So I think it's really important for us to remember that nature is bigger than us. Nature is, to me, nature is God. Nature is the divine, the processes, because nature is not just what happens here on Earth. Nature is the way that Earth and Moon move around the sun and all the planets move around. Nature is those cycles. Nature is that creative, intelligent design, I believe. And yeah, it's really strange the way that we've separated ourselves from nature completely, right? Like separated ourselves from the planet that homes us, that is our mother and houses us, separated ourselves from the greater intelligence within us, our higher self, our soul, separated ourselves from the sense of divinity that exists within each of us and within everything. And it's a little hard to see how for a very long period of time, probably about 3,000 years or so, we've been trying to get back into divinity in a way that actually kept taking us further and further away and deeper and deeper into fear and repression. And I think we're at the cusp of that really changing. Yeah.
Yeah, that's exactly what I channel and speak about too. It's like, it's been about, 3,000 years-ish, and we're getting there. We're getting closer every day. Like, our vibration is genuinely heading back in the direction that it should be for us to really understand life again and healing and all of that, which is really beautiful.
And Earth's vibration is rising. The vibration of the planet itself is rising, which means that the vibration of every single thing that is on this earth is also rising. And for those of us who are conscious and aware, that means really awesome opportunities for us. I think so many people their gifts are coming online, right? We're getting all these amazing downloads. All of a sudden, wait, I'm a medium? What? Like, what is happening? And for some people who are less conscious and aware, it can feel a little bit more chaotic, but it's still happening. We're still raising our consciousness, and that's a really beautiful thing. And the plants are here to support us. They want to help us. They want to guide us. They want to help us in those moments where they can understand that sometimes growth is uncomfortable, it can even be painful, but it's still growth, it's still expansion.
Yeah. And that actually brings me to a little bit we have, for the week of this episode, 2 transits that are happening, one of them being the Sun conjunct Neptune in Pisces. And one of the notes I have for this is, very meditative, using yogic practices, like true yogic practices, getting really in tune with the energy and sort of integrating yourself with the energy, like you were mentioning. But also, one of the notes that I came with in this one was an awareness of sort of the fractal existence, the network of everything being the same and blurring together into a oneness. And this ability to dissolve our separateness, our need to be a separate identity as part of nature, which will be an opportunity on the 13th of March to really tap into that energy. And then followed a couple days later on the 17th by Mercury actually forming a sextile with Uranus and Taurus being very much about revolutionizing and bringing nature back in a lot of ways that we're seeing. And Mercury, that communicator, being associated with the throat chakra and all the things that you've been mentioning, just really gives us opportunities to shift our perception and bring about changes into our lens on things. And I just really feel like people are coming into a time where your book is going to be right on time. Your methods, your work. How can people work with you? I know that you offer your crystals with the succulents, but do you offer services and products that people can really get access to?
Yes, thank you. And I love what you just shared, because my rewrites for my book are due on the 17th. So that feels super aligned and wonderful. I do. I offer some art pieces, like my crystal succulents are the most popular. And I actually have a really fun story about those and the magic in this book as well. But I also do a lot of one-to-one. I'm really moving away from kind of like single products and more into one-to-one sessions with people. I offer plant consult sessions, which is what I did with you, KristaLyn, where we get on Zoom and I kind of audit your home with you. We talk about where the light's coming in, the directions of your windows. We talk about your lifestyle, the kind of energies we want to bring in. And then I suggest specific plants for specific areas, and I can provide you information with how to care for them or different accessories for them. And then I also offer energy work sessions, so full-on chakra cleanses, chakra reads, and I also do intuitive spiritual coaching and mediumship. So, and what's funny about all of this is they kind of intertwine. So often I'll be doing a plant consult and all of a sudden like spirit will come in, I want to share something, or I'll be doing energy work and an ancestor will come in and start doing energy work on my client, or I'll be doing a mediumship or intuitive read, and a guide will come in and they'll be doing energy work on my client, and I'm just kind of describing what's happening. So it all really blends and merges, but it's really about connecting more into energy, with nature, and all that. And if we have a moment, I wanted to share something. When you were talking about the fractals that you're kind of picking up, it reminded me of something that Oak Tree shared with me when I was channeling Oak for the book. And so I pulled out my little thing to is it okay if I read what Oak shared?
Yes.
Okay. I help you access the door within you that also bridges you back to the divine, both the earthly divine and the cosmic divine. Fear is actually a part of love, another fragment from original love. The fear is the focus on the separation from love. We can focus on the love to diminish the separation. Focus on beauty, interconnectivity, and individual expression. Each of us is a beautiful, unique expression from one. If we did not separate, we would not exist. The separation from love caused love to grow and diversify. And I'm like full body chills again, just reading that again.
I need that line on my wall, on my mirror. The fact that really, a lot of people are going through kind of existential crises right now. The world is confusing and it's hard to find meaning in it. And you're finding even in a lot of stories, there's so much like questioning existence. And I feel like that line that you just shared, allowing love to grow and diversify by existing, that is so much purpose that can carry you into the next moment, the next day, the next thing, whatever may come. And I just really appreciate that.
And I loved finding this again, because I think it reminds you of like when you start channeling writing, which for me it has only been like the last year that I really started being able to do this. I mean, it was so perfect that I had all these rejections for this book because I got to, cultivate my own skills so that when I actually did get the book deal, I was in a place where I was able to channel the wisdom of the plants. And you're channeling when you go back and read what you read, you don't remember writing it and you're still like, oh my God, yes. Like, I don't even remember thinking that, you know what I mean? So that's also when you're channeling. When you read it again, you get the same aha.
And that's what our
I was just gonna
forgotten
say,
storytellers.
To all of our writing clients that are listening to this is what we mean. So there's more validation for you. So we run a program for creative writers
that helps you actually access that channeling in your writing with stories.
Yes. Oh my goodness. Yes. I love that. I love that so much.
Wow. Well,
So in terms of like working with me, you can find everything about what I do on my website, infinitesucculent.com. You can find me on Instagram. I probably will be taking a little break for the next few days just because I really need to get into my edits and rewrites.
Right.
Instagram is just so distracting. But that's where I spend most of my time. I'm not really on Facebook or TikTok or anything right now. It's really just Instagram and on my website.
I love that.
So cool. Yeah. Highly recommend. Like I said, I have worked with Raquel before. The wisdom is infinite as much as the succulents. And it's such a great thing to really bring nature into your home as that safe space and that first step in the integration process of just recognizing nature. I love it.
And not to mention the prana they give off, the negative ions they give off, the fresh oxygen. And Emily, I wanted to mention to you, if you wanted to get on a call, I can totally help you with low light loving plants. Because if you can keep that money tree, your umbrella tree there, that happy, you can for sure keep more plants in your house.
Okay. I mean, it's my poor backyard is like all dirt. I have chamomile instead of grass because grass won't live. So I just chamomile the whole thing. Yeah.
So that says a lot about you, about your medicine, about, like the gentleness that comes from you. But it's a very powerful gentleness. Chamomile is so much also about children. It's a really beautiful plant that connects us with childlike energy. It's about safety, security, health. It's also about relaxation. And I feel like that's an energy I feel from you. You help other people kind of calm their nervous system in a very natural, organic way.
Can confirm.
Just like chamomile.
Oh, well, thank you. That means a lot to me to hear. I really appreciate that. And if I can do that for people, then I feel like I've succeeded in life.
Yes.
So I appreciate that. But I would love to get on a call with you. Absolutely. One final question I had just for our listeners, just because my guides won't stop bugging me to ask is mostly what it is. You mentioned having a lot of climate-based panic and that coming in. And I would love to hear any tips you have for our listeners about how to navigate that, even if it's just in little tiny ways, because I know that is so huge for people right now. And I never want to minimize how impactful that can be to your life to have that climate panic. But I also know that it's, negotiable, right? That we can navigate that. So if you have any tips, I think that'd be amazing.
Yeah. So for me, it was definitely like climate change, but it was all of it. It was the environmental destruction. It was pollution. It was ocean acidification, which is another part of climate change. But it was just the fact that we knew we were doing wrong and we kept just doing wrong, more and more. Right. So for me, what really helped, I'm going to be straight up honest here, faith in something bigger. Faith in a intelligent, loving universe that is the guiding force of life. Being able to open back up to recognizing that the dominant force of energy still flowing to earth is wellness, is love. Opening up to understanding what prana is, what energy work is, like that to me allowed me to recognize the damage, the incorrect, it's very human to be like right or wrong, but like the kind of insane, for lack of a better word, activities humanity currently finds itself in, these kind of insane patterns and systems that are really not benefiting us, and yet we're kind of just enmeshed in them. To be able to kind of pull myself out of it and take that kind of hawk's eye perspective, that larger perspective, to recognize this is a huge awakening for us as a species. This is a huge call back to remember our interconnectivity, a call back to remember gratitude, appreciation, and a sense of belonging. So when I got to that place of opening back up to faith, which had to be really personal for me, because the faith that I was taught never stuck. It didn't resonate within me. I was taught about a God that was like a big paternalistic father sitting on high, judging us all the time. So of course, from that standpoint, ecophobia was all I could think of. Like, we're failing. Of course, like this is all punishment, right? From that understanding. But when I could come back to a place of understanding that divine is love, that divine is a creative, intelligent love and interconnectivity between all of life, then I knew no matter what happens for us here on earth, we're all going to come back to that same place. It just took away the fear. And then of course, becoming a medium.
Yeah, that'll do it.
Becoming a medium. I always say, like I say all the time, learning that I was a medium really got me over my fear of death, right? And then being able to converse with the dead is really helping me get over my fear of life. The dead are helping me not fear life.
Yeah,
it's so true.
Yeah,
for sure.
Yeah.
Wow. Well, thank you so much for being here and for sharing all this wisdom. We so appreciate you. And I know our listeners will as well. If you guys want to see the plants around her, please check out our YouTube, because you can watch the actual podcast recording there, as well as just listen to it on all of the podcasty platforms. But thank you so much, Raquel. And we're so excited for your book. That's amazing.
Yes.
Aww,
yeah, definitely everybody follow Raquel so you can be kept up to date on when this book is emerging and coming into the world, because it's a game changer. We're ready for it.
Thank you. Yeah, it's supposed to come out autumn of this year. We're hoping October, like right before Halloween, which would be ideal. But with all the, shipping issues and everything going on, all we know for sure is before the holidays of 2022, for sure.
Perfect.
Thank you so much. This was an amazing conversation. I feel so connected. I also love just how well the two of you work together. Like, you guys are like a well-oiled, I'm actually seeing the infinity sign, like one of those, like, you know what they're showing me? Okay, so they're showing me what, like, machine when they have the two wheels kind of like with the the
belt
line is going in between, like the infinity. That's like what your energy is together.
Oh, well, thank you so much. We always appreciate that validation, and we definitely enjoy working together. It's allowing us to call in and really highlight and give platform to wonderful people like you. So it's a blessing.
Yeah. And to all our listeners, we hope that you go out into nature and
go make some magic.
We were close. It was fine.